Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the High Ticket Coaching and Consultant Strategy and Growth Show. Now, if you're watching the show anywhere else but within our private Facebook community called High Ticket Client Attraction Insider Circle, then definitely come check us out. Recently, we surpassed like 6,000 members. I think right now we're at about maybe 6,300 something members. But if you're not a member, definitely come check us out. And today, I want to introduce you to one of the members of the community, Tiffany Toombs. Welcome, Tiffany.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. You're welcome. And guys, as you know, so what I try to do with the show is just to find individuals who do run successful coaching and consulting businesses and just bring them on here and just have them share their stories as far as how they did it and all those different things. That way you could get some support and basically the motivation you need if you haven't got started yet, or maybe if you're stuck at some point, you could use that as leverage to get yourself up to the next level. So that being said, Tiffany, so tell us, what is it that you do? Tell us a bit about your business.
So I'm an NLP trainer and coach. So I certify people in the techniques of NLP and a therapeutic emotional branch of NLP called matrix therapies. And then I work with people one-on-one to help them get out of the limiting beliefs and the self-sabotage that stops them from truly living their purpose.
Sounds like you're a lot of in the game.
Yeah, so it's very rewarding. I get to see some incredible transformations, some that I didn't even predict. I've had like women who have been doing IVF for years, and then they'll do a coaching package with me and suddenly fall pregnant naturally, and they're like, whoa. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess when we put the body back in its natural state and get rid of all that trauma and emotion that you've been carrying, then anything's possible.
Yeah, awesome. So in terms of NLP, how did you first get introduced to NLP?
So I was at rock bottom in my life, actually. So I've been in the fitness industry. So I've been coaching since I was 14, so about 21 years. And I was living in Australia, had just on the day that I found out I was pregnant, found out that my boyfriend had a girlfriend in another state, and my entire life collapsed. I then found out that he was a compulsive liar, like to the point where he had been forging bank documents to show me that he was making more money than what he actually was. And they were pretty legit. I fell for it, to be honest. So that kind of all came out. And then in the stress and drama of all of that, I miscarried the baby. And then that took me to an emotional low that I didn't even know was possible. But I hadn't told anybody I was pregnant, and I was so humiliated already about the cheating and the lies that I didn't tell anybody that I lost the baby either. And so I was completely alone, me and my dog. My dog is definitely the reason that I made it through. And I found myself one Friday afternoon after a business meeting, standing on the corner in downtown Melbourne, so a city of like 5 million people, traffic, people everywhere. And I could not see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I made a decision right there that the only way that I could get this pain to go away was to step out in front of a taxi that was coming. And so mentally I committed. My body had other plans, call it divine intervention or whatever. I couldn't move. Like it was like I was frozen to the spot. And it was in that moment that I realized that I had to deal with stuff. I'd been abused by my stepmom growing up. I'd never talked about that. And I had all this trauma and stuff, that bullying and whatnot that had built up, and I hadn't ever dealt with any of it. So I did what most people do. I got a therapist. A couple $1,000s later, she was like, there, don't you feel so much better? And I was like, no, we've just brought up like 28 years of baggage and now it's floating on the surface and you haven't given me anything to get rid of it. So I started going to personal development events, like the rah-rah type where you dance and there's loud music and you hug people. And I felt great when I was there. And then I left and I realized I still didn't have tools to deal with my life. I hired a couple life coaches and I said to them, look, I've got all this stuff from the past. I need to get rid of it. And overwhelmingly, the response that I got was, well, we can't change the past. So let's stop thinking about that and just focus on your future. And I was like, look, I've done that for 28 years. And while, you know, it's brought me some incredible success and I'm this huge overachiever, it almost killed me. I need something different. And I kind of just happened to randomly meet somebody one day who was trained in NLP and had studied with the person who created a therapeutic branch of NLP called Matrix Therapies. And so we had a conversation. She did a session for me and it was a game changer for me. And so honestly, it saved my life. It transformed my life. And now I get the pleasure of helping other people do the same.
Oh, goodness. I had no idea you had such a fascinating, inspirational type of journey here. Goodness.
Yeah, so it was really the thing that allowed me to reframe my past. It's true that we can't go back and change the past, but I believe that when we actually let go of the emotions that we felt, the resentment, the anger, the hurt, the sadness, the fear, the guilt, the shame, all that stuff from the past, that we actually look at our past a different way. People say to me now, like, I really wish that hadn't have happened to you. And I say, I'm grateful for that experience because it pushed me to be the person I am today. And I think that's the closest that we can come to rewriting our past.
Awesome. And now you focus on helping others solve that same exact problem, right?
Absolutely. So, and a lot of the people who come and work with me, they're already successful in some way. They have successful families, they're successful in their fitness, maybe in their business, and they still feel like something's missing. There's like this internal battle where they feel like they're fighting themselves. And a lot of them don't recognize that they've even had trauma. Like my stepmom used to lock me in closets and burn me with curling irons and threaten to leave me on the side of the road for strangers to kill. And I never saw that as abuse because it wasn't as bad as what was happening to somebody else. And I think for a lot of people, I mean, the stats are overwhelming that the majority of us face trauma, abuse, neglect, bullying at some point in our life. It's just whether or not we recognize that. And so helping people first recognize that it's okay to be angry or that it's okay to have sadness or whatever. You don't have to compare your journey to somebody else's. There's not really a, well, that was way worse, so therefore I can't feel how I'm feeling. Just to let them know that firstly, whatever they're feeling is 100% justified and that they don't have to carry it with them for the rest of their life is empowering in itself for people.
hmm Awesome. Now, what gave you the because you went through the stuff yourself, you kind of figured out, okay, how do I help myself? You kind of help yourself through processes and different things, and now you're helping others. So, how did you get to the point of saying, now I want to help others? Was it a pretty seamless transition for you, or was it difficult? How did you make that shift?
Yeah, so I had started coaching people in the fitness industry at 14. So I started coaching people back then because I hated, and I was struggling with some eating disorders, but I hated my body and I just wanted to feel comfortable in my skin. And I thought that if I could help other people feel comfortable in theirs, then that would help me ultimately heal my stuff. And so I was already coaching. And I realized going through my NLP training and studying the body and the mind, a lot of which I studied in university, so it already made sense to me, was that if I really wanted to help people feel comfortable in their skin and make the change that I wanted to make through fitness, that I had to start with the mind. And that's where I really made the transition into full-time mindset.
hmm Okay, so it wasn't a bit difficult for you because I know most individuals who they've kind of worked through something, right? They've helped themselves work through some problem, and they're like, man, I wonder if other people are struggling with them. Then they notice other people, but then they're like, well, I'm not sure if I could do this or whatever. But it was a little bit different for you because you were already kind of like in that type of coaching realm with the fitness, so it was just a natural no-brainer.
Yeah, it just made sense. And I started having people come to me because I also have I was a sports trainer for a long time, so on the sports field. And I had a bunch of athletes coming to me who had recurring injuries that they had seen every specialist possible that nobody could fix. And so it was kind of like I was being guided during that time because I was attempting to do physical rehab with people and they were like, I've done this, it hasn't worked. And I just randomly said to one of my clients one day, are you open to trying something like completely new? And I'd been studying Louise Hay's work about how different areas of the body hold different emotions. And so, I implemented some meditation. We started talking about the emotions that part of the body held on to. And this one particular client who had incredible lower back pain and like could not lift anything, it turns out he had been in the special forces in Afghanistan and had witnessed a number of his friends pass. And he had come back with a minor case of PTSD that nobody had picked up on. And so through the mindfulness and the meditation that I gave him, he was able to completely overcome those challenges that he was having with his back pain he was then able to start working out again, which he loved, and lost a whole bunch of weight that he had put on, and started, you know, helping other people, coaching other people in the way that he wanted to. So it was kind of like my two worlds collided, and I was like being pushed into, hey, you can't, you know, you can't just lift weights or do these ab exercises to fix everything. Sometimes it's emotional, and we need to look at that side too.
Yeah, awesome. Now, what about so when you did get started with the business as well too, has business always been smooth sailing for you, or is it one of those places where it's just a constant evolution, constant growth process?
So when I was living in Australia, coaching was just a hobby for me. I lost everything. I was in business with the wrong people in Australia. So I lost everything at the end of 2017, moved back to Canada, Christmas 2017 with like $3,000 to my name. And so I knew at that point that I really had to use my NLP skills that I had around language and understanding the mind to add value to people. So I built my business to six figures in the first 12 months, and it's been steadily growing since then. And I think the difference that I've noticed between myself and then what I teach the coaches that I train is that when we lead with value, like it, especially in the coaching industry where you don't have to have any qualifications, you can say, you could wake up one day and say, I'm a coach, right? And you know, that's why some people have hesitation around calling themselves a coach, is that there are people out there who, you know, have a Google degrees or whatever, and they don't necessarily know how to coach people, or they don't have the tools, or they're coaching from their own ego. And so because so many people can just call themselves an expert these days, and I'm sure you've experienced this, and I know that you do this as well, is when we lead with value and we help people and we give them tips to solve their problem before we ask for their credit card, then it becomes a no-brainer for them to sign up with us. Like I've had people, I had this one woman when I first moved to Dallas to be with my fiance, who came to a workshop, and she said, I have watched every single YouTube video that you have put out. I've watched every Facebook Live that you've done. I've read like all the blogs. I've done it. I've read all that stuff. I hadn't even started my workshop. Like people were like walking into the room, and she came up to me and she said, here's my credit card. I don't know what you're selling at the end of this, but whatever it is, I'm buying it. And that's the experience that I have, is when I get people on the phone, I've already given them so much value. I had somebody sign up for a $10,000 program 2 weeks ago, and she said, you know, I've been following you for a year, and I've gotten as far as I can with your free content. And I know if that's what you're going to give me for free, I can only imagine how you're going to transform my life when I start paying you. So here's the credit card, let's do it. And so for me, because I started off on that premise with how can I add value, because I launched my business in the new year, I reached out to a whole bunch of gyms and I said, you have a database of people who are my ideal client, people who are already paying to get better, but they're doing it physically. So if I can add value to their mindset and help them with self-sabotage and whatnot, which we know happens in fitness, then I may be able to get some clients. And so I just reached out to gyms, to CrossFit places, to yoga studios, to Pilates studios. And I said, let me come and do a free 60-minute talk. I'll just add value to you. It's going to be, you know, something that you can promote that sets you apart from every other gym or studio that's out there. And I won't sell. But what I did do is say, I'm going to give you so much information in the next 60 minutes that you may not be able to keep up taking notes. So I've got it all in an ebook for you. If you want the ebook, give me your email and I'll give it. And that's how I started building my email list. And I've never done a presentation where I haven't gotten at least one client, which gave me at least one referral. And it was just kind of like this slow and steady, where I just kept building, kept adding value. And then all of a sudden I woke up one day and I was like, I think I just hit six figures. And I went and checked and I was like, I just hit six figures, which was an incredible feeling.
Yeah, that is awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. And that's so true as well, too, because at the end of the day, really what it is, what I found is that added value is the key to success, right? There's some individuals who are like, well, I'm not going to give you anything or nothing away until you pay me money. And when it comes to online, it's one of those places, well, I guess you won't have money for a long time, right? Versus other individuals who realize that the best way to get clients is to really lead with helping them for free, giving them as much as possible for free. So that way, when they do get to the end, and when they do figure out, okay, who do I work with? It's always, hey, the kind of like the know, like, and trust, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so many people out there who come to me and they're like, I've worked with another coach who ripped me off, or, I gave a $3,000 deposit to this person and then they canceled our first 3 calls and I can't get a hold of them now and I can't get my money back. So I would much rather put my money where my mouth is and say, I already know how to solve your problem. Here, go do this activity, come back, tell me how it worked for you, and then we can talk. Right? When people want to sign up for me, I do what I call is a clarity call, and I show them how quickly we can use these techniques to make a change by taking away some of their pain. And then we talk about, okay, so how do we get rid of the rest of it? And, then it's an easy upsell. Like I was one of those people who was like, I hate selling. And so I call myself a non-salesperson that I just show people the change that I can make. And I don't even have to say, like, do you want to work together? They're like, so are you going to ask me for my credit card? And I'm like, well, I am now. So.
Yeah, and that's the best type of selling life. Well, really, it's not really selling; it's helping. But I'm like showing someone, right? Because I realize there's some individuals that they come from a place of they're just selling. Versus, I find that if you could just show someone what the solution is, it just becomes a no-brainer for them to say, okay, what's next? How do we how do we move forward, right? It's
Yeah.
just so powerful.
And you're always going to have the people who just watch your free stuff. And people have said to me, that person just takes all your free stuff and they never pay you. You should kick them out of your Facebook group, or you should kick them out of your email list. And I'm like, but that person has referred me people because they may not need me, but I have given them so much value. This law of reciprocity kicks in where I've given them so much value that when they hear somebody else talking about having a need that I can serve, I'm the person that they send. So it doesn't matter if they're not giving me their money, if they're sending me people, because I've already given them so much value.
Yeah. Life is one of those interesting ways, and especially really business, which is, I find a big mistake most people make is they try to always go directly after clients, right? So they're always like, hey, this person up, I got them. And they don't realize that the best I've heard it explain is that it's typically most people you interact with, they're not going to be the clients, but it's someone in their network that's most likely going to need your services. And when the time comes up, either they share it or something, but that's typically where it's always a second degree, third degree removed from the actual person. So I believe most people, they miss the fact of saying that, well, since this person doesn't pay me or isn't an ideal client, I'll just not have a relationship. I'll try to just avoid them, versus not realizing that, well, it's not about that. It's about who's in their network that they could possibly refer you to, right?
Yeah. I read a book that was a game changer for me. I cannot remember. And I can only remember the one page from the book, but it talked about how, like, the law of networking, and this was pre-social media. So with social media, it's even more, but every one person knows approximately 300 people by name. So if I go to a party and I meet Sally, or I have a conversation on Facebook with Sally, Sally may not need what I have, but that doesn't just open me up to her 300 people, but the 300 that each of her 300 knows. So for every one person I meet, I actually open myself up to a network of 90,000. So when I started working with my publicist, and she was like, I can get you on some podcasts. Do you care how big the viewership is? And I said, no, because even if just one person, like, even if it's just you and I having this conversation and nobody else watches, well, now I've, there's 90,000 people where if they're ever like, I want to learn NLP, you're like, I know somebody. Right. Exactly. So, I mean, if you focus more on the relationships and the adding value than on the sales, the numbers will appear in your bank account. But if you focus on the numbers in your bank account, it's going to take a lot longer to get there.
Exactly. Love it. Okay. So in essence, if someone wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to connect?
So you can check out my Facebook group, successsecretsgroup.com. Otherwise, if you go to my website, bluelotusmind.com, all my contact information is there.
Do you have any free resources or anything you share?
Absolutely. So if you go to my website, there is a free 10-day course to help you step into being limitless. There will be a pop-up on there, and I've got my ebook that's absolutely free on there as well. if you shoot me a message and tell me that you saw this video, I can send you a copy of my book for free as well.
Awesome. Love it. Love it. Well, hey, Tiffany, hey, thank you so much for making the time to be here today. Really appreciate you showing up here. Do you have any final thoughts before we end?
I think for the coaches that are listening, you know, I know something that I got stuck in with myself for a while was, you know, why would people listen to me? There's Tony Robbins, there's Mel Robbins, there's all these other successful coaches out there. Why would anybody listen to me? And I firmly believe, and I've come to experience this personally, that we each have a way of sharing the information, the tools that we have that will resonate with somebody. I've had people who've come to me and say, I've heard Tony Robbins, or I've heard this person say what you just taught us, and it never made sense to me until you used your analogy or you put your experience behind it. So there's somebody out there that's waiting to be changed by your story and the way that you deliver the information. So focus on those people. Anytime fear kicks in, or, you know, that self-doubt, I focus on who is it that needs to hear my message instead of focusing on how I'm feeling.
Awesome. Love it, Tiffany. Well, hey, thanks again for being here. Really appreciate it. And we'll talk soon. Okay.
Thanks so much.